I think that the great. No, this is not fun.
You could use Blender in so many different ways. How exciting is that? It doesn't cost anything. Well, it's like I've been paid off by Blender. There's a global pandemic, and software that I use, that I've done all my work on and all of my livelihood and all the money I ever make in the world is going. I'm like, oh, there's only one 3D software for me, and it's Blender.
Hey, Will.
Hi, dude. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How's it going?
Good. You're Birmingham, are you?
Yeah, close-ish. Wolverhampton.
Oh, first festival I ever went to was in Wolverhampton.
Was it called Flip?
It was.
I remember volunteering there, like when I was at university, way back.
Yeah.
Way back in like 2006. What did you show at the Flip festival? What kind of?
That's a great question. I think I made a music video. I think I was in like third year. I did animation at ECA, Edinburgh College of Art here. And I think I had it, I think it was like the first festival selection. It was for a friend of mine's band. It was called Another Day. Yeah, very early After Effects. Like quite long song actually. He's actually my sound designer now, and he's a musician too. He's kind of done all of our sound design over the years. He's mental. His office. He's a good pal of mine actually. He's upstairs. I'm still in Edinburgh. I'm in the studio at Summer Hall in Edinburgh. Upstairs. But yeah, it was his band years ago, and it was kind of like the first thing I really did.
I was going to say, is that how you got into the world of like animation?
Yeah, I guess so. I always wanted to do animation, from being a kid really, but not having really the means to do it. My dad had a Super 8 camera that could take frame by frame, and when I was really young, I was obsessed with South Park.
Will you guys? I'm going home.
Just loved it. I was too young to watch it. I wasn't allowed. Oh no, I was allowed to watch it. I shouldn't have been allowed to watch it. And what I ended up doing was, like, as a kid, sort of making my own ones on my mate's video camera, which would be absolutely appalling if I could see them now. I hope no one ever finds them. But I remember making something on an old Super 8 camera with paper and stuff, and I was using like sort of desk lamps, and so it was completely underexposed. So it came back like weeks later. Like, you sent it off in the post, and like weeks later, and it was just black. Like, it was just like completely like nothing had like developed at all. So I was like, oh, I was so upset.
I bet.
It's like,
did you do any reshoots?
I didn't. No, I think I was just so done.
One of my favourite artists is David Shrigley. So we're going to play a very quick game. You're going to tell me when to stop, right?
Right,
and
cool.
this is going to then give you your mood of the day. Can you see?
Nice. Okay.
Can you see this? Yeah.
I can see. Stop.
So you have got. I don't know if you can see this. I washed the flag because it was dirty. It was dirty.
Yeah. I'm in that sort of today. When it came to like my degree film, it was called The Making of LONGBIRD. That has Super 8 footage at the start. Obviously deeply traumatized from, like trying to film something on Super 8 and it not coming out. And then like to actually have shot it on it and then it come back in the post like 3 weeks later and it's exposed was like, I can go on with my life now.
Yeah.
I can progress,
Yeah, man.
There's something cool about it because it's like, it's physical. You just can't really recreate that. No, and I think I dragged it around like the studio and it's like, it's all noisy and old. It's supposed to be from like, 20th century. It's all like been found and it's been like damaged heavily and burnt and all that. So it's like, just so nice to see that stuff. Aye, and then that film becomes a mix of like it's actually 2D.
Yeah, it's like footage of yourself talking to the character on the.
That's right.
Yeah.
Unprofessional. What are you doing, you idiot? My master would never treat me like that.
I was into 2D. I was into puppet stuff because I liked working fast. I kind of stuck at that for a good 10 years. I didn't really get into like 3D. Like I'm like Blender obsessed now.
And you got some Blender socks as well.
I've got Blender socks. My girlfriend got me them for my birthday.
I had some for my wedding day.
Oh, you've got Blender socks too?
I got the Blender socks, but they've got holes in there. I've had to put them in the bin.
Oh, what? Yeah, man. Oh, I was so delighted. That was my favorite birthday present. I'm Scottish, right? So I need to, like, next time I wear a kilt, I'm gonna put them on. So do you actually know how to use Blender?
I only know what I need to know at the minute.
I wonder if anyone knows all of it. Does anyone actually know? I am new to it. It's sort of, I think it was lockdown actually. Yeah, it was. It was totally lockdown. I've been using this software called MOHO for honestly, 12, 13 years. It's like a 2D puppet animation thing. I did LONGBIRD in it. I've made a few other shorts, like Have Heart was all in it. Like no one knew what MOHO was, and it's awesome. It's so fast. It's like I kind of know it inside out. It's just like one of these things where, like, I think actually more recently people are starting to use it.
And why did you switch to Blender out of interest? What was the reason for that?
I think after 10 years, you kind of naturally want to pivot a little bit and try something else. And that whole like global pandemic thing, that weird thing that happened, I remember thinking like, will I like start like, I mean, I've never been to the gym in my life, right? I've got no like desire.
That was one of the next questions, actually, Will.
Like, should I go to the gym and like do that a lot, or should I like learn Blender or something?
It's a no-brainer for me.
Exactly, and I picked the right one. And actually, now that I remember, I read on like a weird obscure blog post somewhere that MOHO was going like out of business.
Oh, really?
Which didn't happen. But I remember in my existential like, crisis of like there's a global pandemic and and
MOHO is going to go down.
Software that I use, like that I've done all my work on and all of my livelihood and all the money I ever make in the world, creatively as well, is going. I'm like, oh, like I need to train up, I need to retrain. But now it really worked out for the best because I'm Blender obsessed now. I love it, and it's creatively very satisfying to be in there. And MOHO's fine. The rigging thing was a great way of getting in for me, I think. But it's like, I just need it to do that stuff I was doing in MOHO.
Sure.
And then as I was doing it, it's like, oh, I can do so much more now, you know what I mean, than I could before. And I can kind of customize things a lot better than what I was kind of used to inside MOHO. And then you're finding all these like little like glitches and weird things about it and being like, oh, that's quite cool actually. I quite like the sort of like weird little clipping things that happen and all that. Like you can just kind of try loads of different types of stuff. You're not kind of stuck with one style. The
glitch thing, I'm a big fan of David O'Reilly and External World and things like that. One of David O'Reilly's short films called Please Say Something.
Aye.
With incredible in it. I think Have Heart gave me a little vibe of maybe it's like the timing and the sound effects. I know it's those digital sounds, the really random like glitch sounds and the glitch effect.
I think it was. I think his work's been a big influence.
Is it?
Like yeah, and obviously I was much more focused on 2D at the time. But I think story-wise, something about like the subtitling and like kind of the animal characters and stuff like that. I was like it must have influenced it. So I'd made like LONGBIRD, and I worked with this other guy called AINSLIE Henderson, who's a stop motion animator. Now he's kind of come to influence the visual stuff that I've kind of been more recently working on. But like we had done a couple of things together. We did a film called Monkey Love Experiments, which is like a mixture of kind of filmed live action, and he animated like the main character, which is this little monkey called Gandhi. And my job was to we kind of co-wrote and co-directed it, but my job was really like the compositing, sticking it together, and like getting the final look right. My thing was always 2D, emotional and personal stuff, which they all were. And for this thing, it was like, I want to make a film where I'm actually going to make it chronologically, because, you know, in production, it's so, particularly with with working with AINSLIE, it's like everything's boarded. You have you pick your shot that's, you know, you have your shot list, and you're like, it's pretty grueling and you have to just crunch through it. And I'm like, I don't really work like that. Like, I kind of waking up in the morning and not really knowing what's going to happen if you've got a project. And so I kind of knew, okay, I'm going to eventually get sort of in this territory of something for Have Heart.
When watching like Betty, for example, and making of like Longbird and things, that interaction between yourself and the story and the character, it's like, I may be wrong in the way that you do this, but it feels like you're controlling the camera with like almost as if you're scrolling in and out at times, like in a viewport sense.
You're totally right. It's quite like, because this is all in MOHO, and that's kind of how, you know, in a 2D program like that, your interface is that. It's like when you zoom in, you you just like block in 30%, block in 30%. And then you have to kind of scroll it around. And I really loved that. There's this creator that's behind it that you never see. And like Longbird is a bit like that. Have Heart's very like that too. Because Have Heart's essentially about like trying to get I always said it was like the Truman Show, but if it was on an iPad. You know what I mean? It's like Truman Show on an iPad, but the main character is a GIF. It's like, oh, I'd like to see that. You know what I mean? I keep talking about it, so no one else is going to make it. So I'll just try that. This is why I'm quite glad that you got in touch, because it's this process.
Yeah. Like
the making of Longbird is about making a film and struggling with a character, and it's a kind of suitable metaphor that your character's like telling you that you're a piece of shit. It's just like your idea is saying that you're like worthless.
Yeah.
You think you need to think better about the story. It's not even funny anymore.
And it feels like that particularly when you're in college trying to make a finished, accomplished film. You know what I mean? It's like, what I found was, if you're honest with people and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But then, there's this tension, and then it's got characters in it, and that's your drive, that's your focus. It kind of really worked out.
Yeah.
It was like a happy accident for me. I genuinely was like, I don't know if anyone will want to see this. And then I've continued that. Like, all right, I've sort of continued to be like, okay, I'm going to make films about process, because as animators, we're always there, doing that. We're always kind of stuck, with the process, and it's so many man hours, woman hours, hours of just sitting there and tweaking things and making them better, and then you sort of start to question if it's all a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's kind of exhilarating as well.
When you realise you could film stuff and that you could integrate with the characters and they could integrate with you, is that something that kind of was a conscious thing to, I'm going to interact with these characters and they can interact with me? Or did that just happen?
So. I think so, and I think also, again, animators really work kind of on their own a lot. I think it's not changed much, actually. I've found that I'm a weirdly impatient guy. I'm obviously patient enough to animate sometimes, but it's starting to do it with my face, so it's a lot faster. But I'm obviously invested in the process, and I can focus on things. But I'm actually impatient when it comes to ideas and making things. I want things to be made, and so it makes sense that you bring that personal element. Again, this feature that we've done, it's quite a personal thing, but it's I'm totally in it, and it's like a documentary.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, the story was the most important thing. Yeah. Where it was which sounds a bit of a cliche, everyone says that, but it is totally true. You can design nice things and be good at modeling or making rigs and all that, and it's it doesn't matter as long as you actually are kind of communicating something to the world. You know what I mean? I'm thinking about that more recently in Blender, and I'm there's such a big community, and when I get stuck and I'm how does this work, someone responds and goes, oh, do this, and it's so then I kind of got addicted to that, because it's oh, well, I'm kind of learning Blender through the community, but, and sharing whilst I'm doing it. By asking the community or the public, they start to influence a film idea or whatever. I've got this new character called Greg, and he's like a cat.
Can we see Greg in real life today, or is he not at the studio?
Do you mean like the actual physical cat?
Yeah, the physical cat.
Well, you know, he kind of doesn't exist,
I
unfortunately.
thought there was a photo of you somewhere with the cat that looks like Greg. Or did you just find a cat and go, oh, that looks like Greg?
That looks like Greg, yeah.
That was it.
People send me it. And then I looked into like cats that have like hair that grow like uncontrollably. This guy looks like Greg. Oh, I mean, this is a famous cat. You know what I mean? Like, but this actually came later. So like
Right.
I found him. I did not. That tune. Someone sent me that. I think.
They're just not. That almost looks like a photo.
It's so good. So good. I want him. I just made a film about a cat called Dom. That's the longer one.
Yes, yeah.
Oh wait. Will, stop.
What?
That's a good one.
It's actually playing in Birmingham in FLATPAck.
Last year, it was Overlap was part of FLATPAck. And are you also showing at Overlap as well?
Oh, Overlap. Louis Hudson, do you know him?
Yeah.
Louis is a really good pal,
Really?
and we went to college together. So I've known Louis for years and years, you know, and he's brilliant. We've been at an Overlap before, so I think we're going to come along to the Overlap night, and then the night after, we're showing it. Louis is going to interview me and the co-director AINSLIE, and we're going to show a cat called Dom, and maybe some other little short things as well. I didn't realize that you knew Louis. That's brilliant.
Everybody kind of knows everybody, you know, animation world. So
Yeah.
he knows Drew Roper, stop motion animation, a good friend of ours. And
So, you know, when I was talking about Flip at the start, I met Drew Roper at Flip. Yeah, it's great. It's I can't wait.
Yeah,
I can't
man.
wait to hang out with all these, the old team.
Definitely.
It's good, and new team.
yeah, definitely, man. We'll have a beer or three.
Yes, we've got that coming up, which will be really cool. But yeah, again, it's kind of what I've just been talking about. That film is very like, we're in it. Me and AINSLIE are in it. It's about the creative process. It's about kind of failing to make the film work, which is very, very me. It's like I'm very good at making films about not knowing how to make films. With all of the self-deprecation aside, I'm Scottish, I do that. I'm actually really pleased with this. And it's like, it was a really difficult one to make. It's like, you know, very personal. It's about my mum's cancer. She's like, she's fine, she's good. But it became a film about not communicating about how you feel, about kind of avoiding, you know, being more close with each other. And, you know, it's a difficult time to like watch someone you love, like maybe, you know, slip away. So I would find I would be making things to talk to her a little bit. I like this idea that this cat kind of spreads out as a character kind of grows, spreads out over like the length of the film, and it's sort of like uncontrollably kind of like there, which is what cancer is like.
Right.
I love this kind of the beauty in an idea of something like, although like cancer is horrible and, you know, it's like really difficult to talk about, but in my experience, it was strangely like it kind of bonded us.
Right.
Because like it got us like out of our comfort zone, and we had to like, you know, well, I had to make this film, which kind of communicates how I feel about her, which, you know, I was kind of really bad at communicating about how I felt. It's a weird thing where it's like this thing that's kind of scary and terrifying. I tried to personify it and give it a voice. But yeah, I'm hoping that people like it. It's kind of like MOHO stuff, and I hope it resonates with people. But we'll see. We'll see in Birmingham.
You know, you play around a lot with like geometry nodes.
I was made in geometry nodes. Pretty cool, huh?
Feels like you just, you know, maybe you're just trying it out and see what happens, and it's all kind of like does weird shit, which is really cool. Like there's a clip of Greg where he's kind of like walking, and then that it kind of just turns into this like blob thing.
Bulbous mess, yeah. And this is just like I get obsessed with this. I'm just so into it, and it is kind of through experimentation, I guess. I think that thing about like the inflating thing wasn't actually a GeoNodes thing. I'm super into GeoNodes. I love it.
I can tell.
It's like basically like the new hair system is like you change the thickness of the hair, and it's all like procedural, which is just totally brilliant. So I think the hair noise. Could
he become a complete furball if you wanted to just turn up a node and he becomes like just a fluff ball?
Oh, absolutely. Like, let's see if we get there. So this is actually already pretty damn fluffy. Let's get like, where are we here? We've got hair noise. Yeah, you can put the strength right up. and you can probably like put the scale right up, and the shape was shape. I wonder. Oh yeah,
There we go.
Yeah, you get see it gets a little bit out of hand with old Greg there. So this is my mesh here. And so that was kind of made with the skin modifier, I think, pretty quickly. And it's been rigged and posed here. But then you just kind of like draw over it with the new hair system. And I was quite into this. It's sort of greasy looking. But then I was playing around with like slightly fluffier thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all like just this geometry node setup, which I think for people coming into geometry nodes is probably like a little daunting. But I'll honestly say it's really not as scary as it looks.
Yeah.
What is like for me the hardest thing, like because again I'm a noob, is modeling is like the hardest thing. It's like the most fundamental thing. That's the biggest boundary for me. Like I think as well as you're coming from 2D, you're not thinking about topology.
Yeah, and it's just edges and shapes, isn't it? Really, opposed to topology and depth and correct topology and all the said rules, and that's correct topology, that's wrong topology, that's good topology, bad topology, all that stuff. It kind of makes you think, oh, is this right, or is this edge loop correct, or is it going to,
So like what I wanted to say about this was like I really worked on the topology of this that I think is okay. Because I like really spent a lot of time on it, but it was killer for me.
Was it?
I think it was like I think I started on a day and I was like kind of used to rigging, used to like I was playing around with hair and all that. I was like, my topology is terrible. Because at the end of the day, like when you're making things, it doesn't, unless you're making a game, it's like it doesn't matter for the general public because you just try to get your ideas out. Like, have you seen that noodles thing that I did?
Yeah.
That's the reason I made that. Because it's kind of what I'm talking about is that the hardest thing in Blender for me is like modeling.
Yeah, because I guess you can just scale up now. Like if that's on a curve and you wanted like the D to be thicker, you haven't got to worry about like you can just scale up the curve there, can't you? And it's it's effectively generating you a new topology, a new geometry in a way.
Yeah, you can basically draw in a 3D space there. And again, it's like it's not groundbreaking. But it's just like that is such a powerful way, like, and that procedural way of working is so much more like exciting for me. Even like just things like, I've made this, setup, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make a little like character or whatever, and then like a color picker, and I can just change it on the fly. It's just basically like making everything so much easier. I've got this thing about warping things. I think a lot of my characters are just playing around with like weird noise and all that stuff. And just because, again, you couldn't really do that in 2D. And then I've not released this yet, but I'm going to soon. But like this one is like, okay, well, I want to put a noise to it in ones, but then you can like step it. So you can go, okay, now every 2 frames it'll move. And that's like what a lot of stock frame is. And then if you wanted to, you could step it in 3s. 1, 2, 3. So then you can suddenly like mix frame rate, and again, just like quickly change colors. And that's all. They're all just like geometry node setups. It's just so fun to play around with. Like the color one's just so simple. It's just like a couple of nodes and a switcher. It's just like it's just that like I would want. Do you know what I mean? And then looking at it like that, it's like, oh well, if someone's come new to Blender. What I would have liked was to be able to draw anything in it and it just to be there. Just a very short note about like, even like adding a texture, like, in Blender, like you're adding like, and then it saves them in action, but they might delete themselves unless you save it as a like. Oh yeah,
the shield button and the store.
Yeah, what's it called when you, how does it put it? It's fake user.
Fake user.
That took me far too long. To be like, all right, that's gone now.
First time I used Blender was actually on a project for a client. Then I thought, you know what, if I need to learn Blender, now's the step to kind of just test it out. And I was doing it, over a few weeks, and I thought, like, if I don't really know the software yet, and I'm just finding out what I need to know. But when there was little comments saying, if you don't tick this, when you open it, it's going to be gone. I was thinking, then I'd open it every now and then just to check everything was still there from when I left it. because I was
a nightmare.
terrified, you know.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. And again, so making a thing like, and again, you know, not like, you know, not this big achievement. It's just, it's just going back to like what I would want.
Yeah.
Starting it, it's like what I would want is for someone to like, yeah, to be able to bring in an asset that's like, that can do loads of things that I want it to do. Because like at the end of the day, like you can go on to a tutorial and copy the way someone makes a character, which is a really good, I've actually got one. I've got a masterclass on motion design school that you can do that.
Where do we go to find that, Will?
Well, you can go to my website or motion design school, and that's an intro to like grease pencil, rigging that puppet stuff in grease pencil. At the end of the day, it's like, yeah, having tools so you can just do your own thing, because everyone will draw slightly differently. You could use Blender in so many different ways that like just completely like enables you to do what you want to do and be creative with your own stuff. And it's like, how exciting is that? And it doesn't cost anything.
Exactly,
well,
yeah. It's incredible, isn't it? And
it's like I've been paid off by Blender, because it's like, and some days, man, I just like, if it's got a bit of downtime, in that I put it in that R&D box of like, any time I spend on this is useful, because like for example, I can't show you anything, unfortunately, but we're in development on a Christmas movie with Cartoon Network. It's not like happening yet, because it's development, and you never know. But like, they're like two little characters, they're elves, and because I like geometry nodes, I made like little arm generators. So you draw it, and then like a hand just sticks on the end of it. And then I made little leg generators, and then I found myself, instead of animating, you start to kind of break the rules, because you're like, well, I'm actually not going to bother rigging the whole like body. I'm just going to draw like a few different arm shapes, and then I'm going to switch them out, and it's suddenly like a more expressive thing that took like no time at all. But it's just with those principles of proceduralism, actually. Like, you make like basically make a collection of like hands, make a collection of like mouth shapes, like you would in the real world if you were like stop frame making different cast objects you would be replacing, and then just flick through them. We did a Adult Swim short called Christmas is Cancelled.
Christmas this year will have to be cancelled.
What?
I understand this may come as a shock to many of us.
Don't be silly, Santa. You can't cancel Christmas.
Which is actually the start of, it was the thing that brought us into development of Cartoon Network, because they're owned by the same, they're all owned by Warner.
Yeah.
That was like hooked up onto an iPad. This was the other character that I brought up earlier. But like for the Adult Swim short, we used this sort of setup.
Man.
And again, I think it came out of like, that whole thing I was saying earlier about 10 years. It's like, I kind of like have done a lot of 2D animation and keyframing. And I'm actually just excited to not. And excited, because in a way, the setup of these things sometimes takes even longer.
Yeah, it's the setup.
Until you get it down. Mm-hmm. But it's like, that's not the point. It's about the process. Because it's like, I'm actually more interested in trying to sort of, I sound a bit pretentious here, but innovate on how you would make a thing. Because I've done the making a thing a certain way for so long, I'm kind of bored of it.
Yeah. You spoke earlier about, obviously, in the way that you do things, it seems it's not that traditional process, I guess.
Weirdly, the first one, LONGBIRD wasn't. It was like, I'll just do it. Like, and I like that intuitive way of making films. And then what I quickly realized is that, no, you need story. And working with a stop frame animator, best friend, it's like, you need to board it. We just finished a short with the BFI, and that was heavily, like, it was an animatic, story artist, scripts. Like, we can do that, and we have to do that. But maybe, like, the thing that I find really exciting is just doing and just like making things and letting the process just guide you, and then you discover things, and that is way more exciting for me than like going and writing this perfect script and this beautiful clear animatic and then going and crunching doing it. It's like,
and then you've got to animate it in a nice way, whereas by that contraption that you've got going on, That feels like, you say, puppetry, where accidental things can happen on stage. That
And we make ourselves laugh.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We're doing it and we're like,
look how funny that was when that like eye started to like glitch or the head went backwards for a moment or something funny.
and
You know?
it freaks out and like thing that you didn't think would happen happens. It's like, that is so fun.
Yeah.
And that's what we're putting into that's how we pitched it to cartoon, because we were like, we want to make this in a different way. We want to make it like in this procedural way, which, to be fair to them, they probably were like, what are you talking about? But when you actually start doing tests and start sharing it, it's like, they're really on board now.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, why wouldn't you be? Because it's like, it's faster, it's more fun, it looks different, it looks kind of at points, but it doesn't matter because it's dialogue driven. We have written it to a degree, you know what I mean? But like in terms of, and because we're in Blender, we can change the cameras about. So it's not like doing a 2D production where it's like you need everything down. It's like, no, we can move the things about and like improvise, because that's the magic, I think, you know?
Yeah.
Like, people work in totally different ways. I totally get that. Like, God, you'll be talking to people who are like so in their way and brilliant at it, and like, that's amazing. But like, I think the things that I'm interested in personally is these edging over to the procedural stuff and being able to play more.
Yeah, I guess that feels more freeing as a creator. You mentioned earlier, people ask what software do you use and what inspires you to create these characters. My questions are, what softwares do you not use, and what doesn't inspire you, Will?
I used to work at that's good, clever, working on your feet. I used to work at this, well, I still do freelance sometimes, the design company in Glasgow called ISO Design, and I learned a lot from there. Like, a lot of After Effects, a lot of Cinema 4D, and I did a bit of it. I did use it a bit, but it was as simple as like, okay, I'll go and use Cinema, but it's really expensive. And I like actually came, and I'll probably get bitten for this, but I actually came to kind of work out that like character animation, which is what I'm really interested in, wasn't like super great in it. It's like, I struggle with it. So I would say, and when finding Blender and like being like, oh, this is free and brilliant and you can do everything, I realized like I don't need Cinema at all.
Right.
Like, and I'm quite glad that I didn't invest loads of time doing that, which is brutal to say. But it's like, it's true. Maybe it'll get better, but I think Blender is the place. Maya's very expensive.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I would say, there's only one 3D software for me, and it's Blender.
My name is Will Anderson, and I am addicted to Blender.
Exactly. Everyone knows. Did you ask what doesn't inspire me?
Oh, yeah, what doesn't inspire you, Will?
Dogs. I don't like dogs. Yeah, I'm a cat person.
Oh, that's a good answer. That's a great answer. We could do a final thought we could do a round of this before we sign off.
Let's get one up.
Okay.
Get it up. 3,
Tell me when.
2, when?
Okay. Left or right? We'll go with
Left. Let's go left.
Oh my gosh, this is weird. Something else that's dirty. Baton is dirty. You're a dirty man, Will, and I think that wraps up the final thought.
This dirty guy from Scotland.
Will, thank you so much, man, and we'll see you at FLATPACK, and we'll speak to you very soon, man.
Nice one, man.
Okay.
Have a nice day.
You too, man.
See you later. Bye-bye.
See you later, Will.
This is where we cut, isn't it?
Cut.